All right, I'm excited to report that I'm on my way back out to see the hat. Gregg McHatton, the great instructor. You know, my first lesson was very instructive. There's two things I came away with. One was that I was on the right track. At least what I've done so far, at least has gotten me going in the right direction. But the second thing I realized is I've got a long, long way to go. You know, Gregg was pointing out to me that I need more of all the things I'm working on. More lag, more softness, you know, more bend in my knees, more rotation. You know, it's a lot. But the good news is I have somebody that I'm working with that I trust, that really knows what he's talking about. And it's helping me get closer to the Hogan swing that I've always wanted. All right, so we're off. I don't know where I'm going. This is always so much fun.
We had Hogan in the machine from the Shell's Wonderful World of Golf, the tip you gave. If you don't mind, I'll hit one for you, that driver. Yeah. 90 frames a second. So once we had it in there, we had the stick figure of Hogan's. Mm-hmm. And then when we took them to a spot, we can say, okay, so where are the force vectors for all the joints? And we just spit them out. Mm-hmm. So there's a spot like right here where the left hip, the right knee, the right hip, the right shoulder all going left. The left hip, the left knee, the left hip, and the left shoulder all going left. Everything's going left. Everything's going this way, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll go, well, you know, I bet his head is still. Well, his head was going left too. But, see, and everything from that point on continues left with one exception. Right shoulder. Since the right shoulder has to go around the neck, it ends up going back to the right. So it gets to a spot where my right shoulder gets ahead of my right hip. Mm-hmm. But then my right hip gets ahead of my right shoulder. And then it's well ahead when I hit it. Right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the trailing pivot part, you know, the right shoulder. If the right shoulder gets in there early, oh, you are in big trouble. So it's really critical if the right hip stay ahead. And the right hip, with Hogan, it didn't catch up. The right shoulder didn't catch up with it until he got to about here.
That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Yeah, sure is.
All right, let's see what we got.
What do I start with? A wedge?
Sure. So even on this shot, see, it's still left my shot. And what you just did was, and then you missed the ground. Right?
Sure.
So here, now we're going to throw it into the ground. Throw it into the ground with your chest because of your hip. Throw it into the ground because of your chest. So you want to throw it into the ground because of your chest. And then when you get to the ground, you're still against your chest. That's it. Now then, the only thing that moves it is your right hip through and your left hip out of there, and your left shoulder back. And your right shoulder just sits back. Got 3 pivot parts working and 1 pivot part tilting. Well, that's way unrecognizable compared to the first. So what Christo needs to work on is the fact that when he gets to impact, he gets this way too soon, and the reason that happens is because the guts aren't working hard enough. So when we're talking about how much work you have, it's how much your hip takes your shoulders through and how much your shoulder drags your arms through. So if we have both arms against our chest when we go through, that means we had to work somewhere else. And if your wrists have any help going through, it stops your hips, just like that. So one of the things that would be very useful is to make a swing like we talked about, where when you drag this forward, it hangs off your wrists, on your chest, you throw it back where you work, and then when it falls, you can use your chest because of your hips to put that club against the ground when you go through. And notice that when you put it against the ground, your hands are probably coming up, but the club's still going down. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, one thing I had suspected, I put some baseball stuff in my book talking about baseball swings, because it seems to me like with a baseball bat it has to fall.
Right. Oh, that's the best. Yeah. So one of the things they all do, I'll do that. They always set it back to put it on the plane. They're vertical, sort of up here.
Yeah.
Then they lay it on the plane of the ball, right?
Yeah, and that body is wide open as it's.
And look how bent their right arm is on the hip.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody's like that.
Left arm is across their chest. Just, And in Chris Cheddar's books, he said that Hogan said that his older brother was a great baseball player, probably the best athlete in the family, Doyle. And he demonstrated a baseball swing, and then he dropped it until he just went and just blasted it. And I was like, that's so cool, but it makes sense.
Absolutely. How did you decide Hogan was the guy?
The first thing was the mystique, but I never really saw him swing until the internet and YouTube came out. When I started watching videos on YouTube, I mean the freedom and the acceleration and the lack of it just authentic. Like this is the real swing. And in all of my research, there's nobody nobody looks like him. There's people that have great swings, I think, you know.
He's like a cellist, you know. Cellist, there's something about a cello that strikes your heart. It's the right vibration.
Woo! I've got chills just thinking about it right now.
Right. Stories don't do it justice. So I know I'm going to take these. You can't be as good as I think, because he's 60-something. The stories don't do him justice.
What should I work on for this next week or two until I come back?
Well, I think you got to work on finishing all your shots. The most important shot to finish is the one you miss. If you start finishing your misses, you'll be that much better, way that much faster. And then I think the thing you have to do is you got to have this softness, and the softness comes. The only way softness works is if you get, because softness shouldn't look sloppy. Don't confuse softness with sloppiness. It should look quite firm. See, that's really soft, but it looks firm. And it's firm because, so if you're going to give me the back of your hand, you wouldn't give it to me like that, you give it to it like that. And that's still soft. You didn't tighten your hand to do that. And so basically the most important thing is that we're going to get your left hip back. And when it starts forward, it starts to get away from both your hips get away from your right knee. And then your right hip goes through as your left hip comes back. So you get to use both hips, left hip back. And then the left hip goes and pulls the right, and then the right fires and goes past. So when you do that, you can do all that, everything else will just fall into place.
Excellent. Thank you so much, sir. It means the world to me.